How's
And
the
hear you
lockdown
there?
treating you?
It's tough, bro. I think the most toughest thing is the cabin fever. I think when you denied something, it becomes precious. I don't mind staying at home until I'm forced to stay home. That's the tricky part.
Oh, never a truer word spoken, man.
It's been tough, but it's you get along with it. As I think routine is important. I think
Right.
it's like small things that I never used to do. I'm starting to do again properly. So making your bed, dressing up, that kind of mindset kind of makes your mind activate into like you're living, you're doing something.
I
But
got you.
once you embrace the whole life sucks, I can't change, I stay in the same clothes the whole day, somehow I think for me personally, it kind of messes me up.
I got you. By the way, before we get started in this conversation, did you see the Ted Riley and Babyface IG live?
I saw some of it. I saw a bit of both, highlights of both.
The first part. I'm talking about the first one where Ted Riley was just like,
Yeah.
"Hey, they got
He
pieces,
went
don't you?"
too hard. He went too hard. He overshot himself. He went. I don't know why he's got the band. He's got the lights. He's got the back. It was a mess. I think he tried too hard. He wasn't there. The thing is about that battle. It's about hits, nothing else. The whole charade and having everything else is not. It's not the purpose of that Instagram live. The
I
main
think
purpose of that Instagram is that music hit for hit. Let's go. Simple. Sit down, grab a chair. Let's go. Simple.
exactly, and that's exactly how Scott Storch buried his. I forget the guy's name now. Man, I can see his face, but that's how he buried him. Scott
Mm.
Storch just kept hitting him with exactly like that, like hit, 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 hooray! Um, so
I think
so
that's also just a
so
quick one. I think it's also
yeah.
an interesting brand discussion there in a sense that in life sometimes overkill ends up killing you.
Ooh,
So doing too much is sometimes bad for yourself. As I think even it goes for the whole. This is a very tricky discussion, but it goes for the whole idea of people who overdress. So they wear Gucci top to bottom. Gucci, when worn appropriately, looks amazing. But when it's overkill, it kind of kills the whole aesthetic and the vibe of the particular brand that you're wearing.
I
So
know.
that I think that's what Tate really did.
I know what you mean. The
Overdid
guys who
everything.
wear those shiny shirts that have Gucci logos all over, and then it's got the big Gucci belt, and it's got the Gucci
Subtle.
jeans, and usually un umkaba. So you got this umkaba over the belt's trying to hold up this package, and then it's trying to get
Ah,
boy, you're just like, man, this is a mess.
no, too much is too much. Can't do too much, guys. Settle it up. It's a brain thing. If you overstimulate a brain, it loses its whole mindset. Like your brain is continually trying to understimulate itself. Always, always. That's why if you see 100 billboards, you don't remember them. You don't when most people won't be able to tell me how many billboards they saw on the way to work because it's just too much content at
Oh,
one
I
go.
see. So what do you mean, like the brain shuts it out, eh?
It filters. The brain filters, and this is just a marketing thing. So your brain always cleans up content. Whether you must think about how overstimulated you are. Right now, you've got your TV that's got TV adverts. You've got your phone that's got adverts. You've got your newspaper that's got adverts. When you look outside, there's a billboard. It's got adverts. So it's too much content for a human brain to accept all at one go. So what it does is that what your brain starts doing is filtering out the content for you. So you're not thinking, it's almost like when you catch a ball. People think that the brain is so smart. It's an interesting phenomenon. When you catch a ball, how many calculations your brain is doing to say height, width, length, that speed, velocity, all that is happening at your
Wow.
moment of lifting your hand and catching a ball. So now think about now when this stimuli is hitting your brain now starts thinking what's important, what's not important, what can I weed out, what can I accept, what is important to me, what is not important to me. So that's what continuously happens. Hence why some adverts do not stick in your brain for long. Some do because they hit a node that's important to you. And then therefore your brain keeps it there. And what happens is that you have brand recall. So the idea of an advert is essentially how it triggers your brain so that when you go to the store and you see the particular brand, you're familiar. When you're familiar with something, you purchase it. That's
I love
how
that.
that's how it's supposed to be.
So earlier, and this is an interesting segue to, it's a great segue actually to the conversation you and I had, because earlier I made the video about Mark Stanton, who sent me a DM saying, so for scenario and for context to the people who are watching this who didn't see the earlier video, Mark basically, he was like, look, he said, I've already bought media space, and he was going to do a few things above the line, some things below the line, and one or two things digital. And he said, but this was all, you know, pre-planned. It was pre-corona. And he said, the scheduling is coming up. Then he said to me, my agency is asking me if I still want to run with the campaign or if I should be quiet. My advice to him was, look, run. And I was saying to him, run because everybody in the market is quiet right now. So it's a perfect time for you to be running a campaign. You said what?
I said I wouldn't, depending on what his brand is. And I agree with the sentiments that you're saying, but people, I think the problem with what we do in terms of marketing, we copy paste. What Vusi is doing might not be what Sia does, and that's based on what position you are in the person's brain or your customer's brain. So depending on what he does, so if he's doing an essential service, it depends. I'll go back to that again. So he needs to pick between what is his purpose for advertising. Scott, I believe in two main reasons, which is, first of all, are you advertising for sales or are you advertising for brand equity? So if he's advertising for sales, so if he's got
advertising for brand what?
Equity.
Okay, all right.
So brand equity, just brand building, so people know that there's a person called Vusi Thembekwayo. That's it. So if he's advertising for sales and and his product is an essential service, let's give it an example. It's a toilet paper.
Yeah.
He can advertise at this particular moment. He was planning to advertise. He's got the budget. He's got probably the research. Then I think he should, because his advertising becomes measurable. So if for example, let's give him a non-essential service product. He manufactures caps. If he's manufacturing caps and he's advertising now, when is he going to see the ROI of his cap advertising campaign? At what point is he going to say, this ad campaign during Corona was remembered 6 months down the line when lockdown was completely liberated? So then in that sense, then if it's not an essential service, then he's advertising at this particular moment for brand recognition and brand equity. So he's basically saying to people, look, I'm doing the famous word that everybody loves, brand awareness. I don't like it so much, but yes, he's doing brand awareness. But the problem with brand awareness is it's the same reason we call toothpaste Colgate, but we can still buy Aquafresh. It means you know something, but doesn't necessarily mean that you'll purchase something.
Damn.
That's the mistake with people. So they keep doing those kind of things. So for example, with brand awareness, what he's going to be doing is going to say, here's Sia's cap. I'm manufacturing caps, the coolest cap. He does this whole campaign. It goes back to the discussion we have in the beginning. People will see it, they might like it, but their brand recall will not be great in 3 months' time. So what they're going to do is that they'll see it, they'll like it, and because you're overstimulated, they'll move on. So 6 months down the line, when he's going to say, oh, I think I remember something. I've seen this. I know where I've seen it, but it has no personal drive for him to purchase this product. So that becomes a problem.
Can I just say something? Because one of the things that confuses me, particularly, and I use the word confuses, not annoys, very advisedly. But one of the things I don't like about marketing people is you guys sometimes tend to think that entrepreneurs run the Reserve Bank. Like you guys tend to think sometimes that entrepreneurs have this massive printing press of money. I'll give you an example. When you say to me, there's two reasons you advertise, either brand equity or sales. I can tell you for 99% of entrepreneurs out there, there's two reasons you advertise: sales and sales. Like brand equity I don't care if you know my brand. What I want to know is it going to move my top line needle so I can grow my business, right? So I don't imagine Mark was in a scenario where he's trying to grow brand equity. I think he's definitely trying to drive it at a sales angle. So if you were talking to entrepreneurs right now who had a little bit of money and were thinking about running a marketing campaign, and they're looking at this time of COVID and they're going, all my competitors are quiet, no one's making a noise, and they think they want to drive sales to their businesses, you would advise them and say what?
It depends. What is he selling? Is it non-essential or essential item? So it depends on what you're selling, Vusi. I think That's why I think when you're an entrepreneur, you hire a team and you don't hire people. That's the problem. Vusi, if you want to tell me that you drive sales, then hire an accountant. If you want to drive brands and you want to drive more than long-term products, the reason we struggle in South Africa to have long-term brands is that we've got too many people who are survival entrepreneurs. So they doing what you're saying now, which is, I want sales. And they're hemorrhaging sales on their long-term viability. Play the long-term, play the long game, or play the short game. That's your decision that you need to make as an entrepreneur. So if you want to make 50 sales during Corona and make masks, good for you. Once the mask need is done, your business is done as well. That's why you go for closure. That's it. If you want to create the best pharmaceutical products post-Corona, then you need a marketing person. And that's when you start. And I think what we also confuse is that we want to market everything to everybody. As an SMME, pick your niche. Stop being good at it. It's not a popularity contest. There's many people with 500. I think I'm going to give you a direct example. There's an assumption that because you have, 250K followers, and I have, 1,005. There's assumption that if we both launched, I think if we both launched a brand at the same time, your assumption that you might sell more because you have more followers is wrong, because people don't understand the difference between followers and fans and customers.
That's right.
That's the big thing.
That's right.
You are not your brand. This whole thing, I know my name says brand here, but it's not. I am not. If I started a product, I will distance myself from the product. You're not buying me, you're buying a product. So as SMMEs, they need to move. My first advice is, first of all, move away from your idea of that you are the brand. You are not the brand. The brand lives on its own. The brand, ask yourself this question. If I had to sell my brand, am I needed as part of the purchase? And if you are, then you don't have a brand. You are the brand. Because at the point of, I need to sell Vusi's lotion, and Vusi needs to be part of the company when I sell it, it means that Vusi is the company. But if you can sell Vusi without the lotion, without Vusi being part of the company, you are able to say, I've maximized my brand, and whoever buys it can continue with it. So the problem with SMME is, point one, move away from the brand. Make the brand grow on its own. Don't have an ego about it. It's not you. It doesn't represent you. And that goes into price and value. And we can have a big discussion about price versus value. But it goes into those kind of elements, because you need to ask yourself the question that, okay, what is my brand? What does it stand for? What is my purpose for advertising? Are you advertising for ego? Are you advertising because there's a need that I'm servicing? So if this guy is advertising because he's already committed, it's almost like saying you're lost and the petrol attendant says, go there, but you said, I've just come from there. I'm going to continue on my lost journey until I find. You can't commit because you're already committed before Corona. So my point is that at the end, the fact that you have the budget doesn't mean you have to use it. I wouldn't do it. I don't think you should do it unless you have a purpose that is in line with the particular instance now. So if you're going to ask yourself, when you advertise, ask yourself one big question: what is the impact? If you don't have that answer, then don't advertise. So as SMMEs, find out, first of all, what is the purpose of your brand? So have an introspection. What is my brand? What does it stand for? Who is it? Who's the target market? Who's my audience? When do I speak to my audience? When are the sales figures? Like, what is the research that I've found out? So people don't even research their own fans. So you'll have, and I don't want to digress, but you'll have social media influencers when they say, okay, what is your audience? How many black people, how many white people, how many colored, where are they?
The demographics,
yeah, but you want to influence, but you want to go to a company and say, I'm an influencer, I'm going to post your brand. What are you posting it on? What are you basing if you don't know your own customer, you can't advertise. And that's the mistake of SMEs. They want to advertise not knowing the customer.
Can I just take a few steps back? Because you've said a lot. Like, you said a lot. So, I get your point, your comment about the short-term game versus the long-term game, right? But if you are an SMME watching this conversation now, how do you, as an SMME, balance out short-term game versus long-term game in terms of, one, building brand, but also achieving sales? Because the truth is this: for a lot of small business people out there, and for a lot of SMMEs out there, and by the way, for those of you watching, there is a difference between a small business and an SMME. There's a difference between a startup and a scale-up. There's a difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. And the difference is not academic. There's actually a real difference. But for people, let's just say in the broad ecosystem and community, So you just said, don't mistake your brand for the company's brand. But the truth here is, for a lot of people, they use themselves as the platform to build their business's brand. So you know, if I've got 1 million followers and I make, you know, I was just having the smoothie here. Everybody was asking, what am I drinking? This is a smoothie. If I've got 1 million followers and I launch the smoothie company, you believe I'm going to tell my 1 million followers about my smoothies, right? Yeah. So at what point does Beats by Dre becomes Beats rather than Beats by Dre? At what point does Nike become Nike rather than Nike by Phil Knight? Is the point I'm asking. Like, at what point do I go, this was me, now it's them, and I'm just the guy managing this thing? And it doesn't even matter that I'm behind the story, but it's those people managing this thing that people are want to buying into.
I think in your growth phase of your business, I think let me clarify myself. I never think that you should not use your channel. So if you got 1 million followers, that's your channel. Use that 1 million followers as a channel. And then you must also understand, as soon as you start using that 1 million followers as your channel, once you start saying controversial stuff, you might impact on the brand value. So you go into tricky waters where you don't know what's the difference between personal and business. And that's my problem. So Vusi, there's Vusi at home and Vusi in a meeting. You can say things at home that you can't say in a meeting. Right. And once you conflate the two, you lose one or the other. Right. So it's fine. Like, and that's my problem. You can go on, I see many things on Twitter and Instagram. You can post things, but you must understand, as soon as you start posting those things and then you post your business profile on the same page that you're posting jokes and criticisms and pornography or whatever you are posting that you like on your page, it conflates with how someone views your brand. So that's why I'm saying always have a balancing act. I think you build your brand with the network that you have. The first part of building brand is network. That's your sales, that's just transactional. But you have a long-term strategy. I think the reason people don't value branding and marketing so much because they struggle to understand a value of nothing. And even when you're pricing, the reason I'm going to explain what value of nothing means. It's very intrinsic. You can't see a brand, you know? So I'll give you a great example. This is a great discussion that I've seen on YouTube and I've spoken to friends about. So you've got, how do you price, Vusi, designing a logo for Nike, and then when you design a logo for Vusi? How do you price the two differences? So if I go to Nike and I say to design that tick it will cost you 20 million. And I go to Vusi that I'll charge you R1 million for that same logo. How as a business can I justify the two?
I get you.
And so it starts becoming a value of the brand that you're working on. And then the reason Nike costs more is because of the touch points and the risk of failure. So if I redesign, for example, Absa did the redesign of the logo.
Yeah.
If Absa's redesign of the logo costs more than my SMME design of a logo, purely based on the fact that Absa has to spend on how many ATMs, how many branches, how many uniforms, the risk of failure of that logo not transcending through all the touch points is higher. So when I bill Absa and I say, Absa, it's going to cost me 50 million rand to rebrand you. And I say, Vusi, when I bill you, it'll cost me R1 million to rebrand your thing. The idea you must ask yourself as a business is that if the rebrand, people won't value, if I charge something, people won't value it because they're more worried about the intrinsic. So if you buy a t-shirt, they can feel, touch, here, they can wear the t-shirt. You can't buy a logo, can't feel a logo. But the problem is that as a designer, as a brand, as a strategist, I'm giving you something that could be a pick and pay size in 10 years' time. How much is that logo worth now? You've got Apple logo that's worth more than the actual tangible parts of the business. The brand itself becomes more valuable than the business, than the assets of the business. The brand equity is so high. So how do you go back to the person who designed the Apple logo and say that logo was worth 10 rand? It's just an apple with a cutout out of it. You see the importance of messaging and structuring and the value of what a brand is for your business. That's where you start understanding that when I say redesign your logo, redesign how your messaging is structured, redesign what you say, how you say, redesign your packaging, what material to use, because plastic has a different brand perception to a customer than glass. So those kind of things, I can pay 22 Rand for a Snapple drink, and I want to pay liquid fruit 20 Rand because one is made in tin, one is made in a glass. It's the perception that, and all these touch points are what builds a brand. So SMMEs don't see the value of that. They just see, okay, you design me a logo. They don't even look at, is the logo negative? Does it apply? Is it applicable to a t-shirt? Is it applicable to a social media platform? How is it accepted? How is it viewed? How is it,
You said, I remember you and you were in my office and we had this exact conversation. And by the way, for all the 300, 400 people in on this conversation, I've been trying to get Sia to come and do some work with me. He won't. So maybe y'all hit him up. Hit him up after this, follow him, and then DM him and tell him, yo, go help Vusi out. But you and I were having this conversation in my office, and you said something to me which I thought was interesting. You said, you were talking about the look of our current website, and you were like, first you got the wrong colors because you got the black, which absorbs everything. It doesn't, you know, so the problem is that for a lot of us entrepreneurs, we are functional people. Like at the end of the day, like I said, if I'm selling smoothies, I know how to make the smoothie. Like I'm good, I can make the damn smoothie. I can make a smooth smoothie, right? But all these other elements around branding and marketing and brand equity and pricing, that's a completely, and for me, having studied this stuff, I still talk to guys like you because I know there's a difference between studying something, understanding it academically, and talking to a practitioner who's in the game every day, right? So one of the things you dialed me in on, for instance, was font, because you were like, yeah, but you gotta check your font out. You gotta make sure if your font is professional enough. Then you gotta make sure that the background and the font work. Then you gotta make sure that the logo and the background and the font work. And then you took me back and you were like, but you also gotta think about the story of what you're trying to say and make sure that you're not using hard corporate fonts to tell a soft, like story, right? So if somebody's watching this conversation, what are like the 5 things that you would say, these are the 5 things you've got to look at if you're deliberate about wanting to build your brand?
I think first big thing is messaging. What's the message you're trying to derive? And that's the big fault. If you learn one thing, I guess, and I don't want to make myself like I know it all, but if you learn one thing from myself, is just, if you understand messaging, then you'll build your brand properly. So if you know, for example, that as so-and-so brand, I stand for this, then that message should transcend the whole brand. I'm talking about top to bottom, even including yourself. As I said, I know before I said you're not your brand, but you're part of the brand. So how you present yourself. So the messaging is very important. So the confusion that we have in South Africa is that our messaging is below premium, but our pricing is premium. And that's where price versus value comes. You know? So you question, and that's why I say branding is very intrinsic. So you question people like Louis Vuitton, why is it expensive? Because Louis Vuitton's had 100 years of heritage. If you start your brand 2 years ago, you can't compete with 100 years of heritage. BMW is expensive because of the heritage. It can tell you a 100-year story of them designing, redesign, design, redesign. You've been in the business for 2 years. You don't have that equity. You don't have that know-with-all that you can build on. So that's why it's very important for you to start from a start point, is that say, know what message I'm trying to derive. So as brand Sia says that I am targeting lower LSM brands, and this is lowest LSM consumers. This is my consumer. This is what I'm saying. That message then goes to like what I was telling you about logo and color and whatnot. That message appears on your website, appears on your social media page. It appears on every touch point that you have. It needs to be consistent. But the problem with us is that and it goes with people who use their own personal pages to advertise their business. The problem with us is that we move from having, so you'll have a great message. You get a copywriter to write your website. It looks clean and nice.
That's right.
But when you post on social media, you post rough and you do spelling mistakes and whatnot. But you expect somebody to look at that and say, your cold drink is worth 20 Rand. Their perception of you changes because of that. So messaging is very important. Know who you're talking to, and be consistent. So if you're premium, then your packaging needs to be premium. You can't be premium with a subpar pack. You can't cut costs. That's the problem. People want to be a Louis Vuitton but buy material from Chinatown. You're lost. It needs to be focused. Like if you say to me, I'm pricing in Louis Vuitton price bracket, you telling me that I can have a story about every ingredient. Hence why Woolworths does the same thing. Woolworths says, how do I magnify my message that Woolworths is premium? I give you clear packaging first of all. So Woolworths got clear packaging, so you can see all the ingredients inside. If you've ever been to Woolworths, man, they clear out the expired goods or the close to expired products just before you leave. They don't wait for the shop to close and whatnot. They do it while you. So what goes into your mind? Woolworths is fresh. They always take out old food very quickly. They don't wait for it to expire and stay in the shelf. So you think quality there. So and then Woolworths also has things like natural tones. So if you go into Woolworths, how does it look? Very naturey, right?
Yeah.
So it's very calming and it's very quality, earthy. Very I can relate to the food. So that translates to what the food looks like. And then how does it? Then they spend more money on how the inside of look at the fridges at Woolworths and compare to the fridges that you see on Pick and Pay. In terms of the quality of fridge, you open the two glass doors. So everything in terms of packaging, look, and then they name things weird. So they'll go, this is Himalayan butter, whatnot. And then they'll go, this is free-range chicken. Free-range, from my understanding, is just chicken that's been kept it's been allowed to roam in these big fields. It's treated better before they kill it and whatnot. So they use keywords. So it's things like that. That's what messaging is. Messaging is not a post. Messaging is your whole brand profile. So from start to finish, from website to packaging, that's messaging, consistent, and that goes for logos, look and feels, colors, and whatnot. And then the other point that you maximize as a business is that research your customers. Even if you got 5 fans or 5 customers and 5 people who buy your product, know those 5 people, where they stay, how old are they, how important are they to your business, how much do they spend. Know the 5 fans. But the problem with 5 customers, people just act like, I don't know, they don't take consideration who's their customers. So if you don't know who your customer is, then there's no importance, there's no value that you're deriving from the customer. How are you going to, and then I asked the question to the SMMEs who want to advertise. How are you going to advertise to people you don't know who they are? You can't even leverage research, because the biggest thing, if people want to understand as an SMME how important data is probably the biggest resource that's going to it's going to be more expensive than oil at one point. So if you understand your customer, you know how important, how valuable it is. So I think that's what you need to do. You need to know the right messaging, know your customer, build a team. You're not a jack of all trades. I know it's a money thing, but even if it's insights, build a team. Have a finance person, have a salesperson, have a marketing person, have those insights. But even if it's not a permanent team, it's just some people that you can call upon, whether it's a mentor, whether it's someone studying it, or whatever the case may be. But and number 4 for me is a big South African problem. Withdraw your arrogance. Like, you are not, your arrogance is the problem. You're not devoid of not knowing. It's not a bad thing not knowing everything. And I think that's the problem. People think they know everything and they want to. You're a business. I started this company and I know. No, you don't know everything. Get insight from people. Go with your gut and your conviction, but have the humbleness to listen and learn and say, look, when Vusi says 1, 2, 3, I can listen, can I comprehend, and I'm not, I know more than, I've been 20 years in the game. 20 years in the game changes. It goes back to the things of digital marketing, where there's no one, we're all equal now because of digital marketing. Because if you studied marketing 50 years ago, you didn't study digital marketing. So 50 years in the game doesn't make any difference. We're all equal in terms of our business. And then I think
say what you just said again. Because there is a new type of marketing in the game, even the old guys are new, because we're all new school. So nobody's an expert. We're all learning as we go here.
We're all learning as we go. The environment has changed. How can someone with 50 years marketing tell me that he knows Twitter more than I did when we started at the same time?
Wow.
He literally learned it as we learned it. So it's continuous learning. So the companies that never learned have all died. BlackBerry, Nokia, everybody who thought they knew more than the new infrastructure or the new wave of thinking will always struggle. So if you cut your arrogance but you also believe in your convictions as a business, because the reason I'm putting them as juxtapositions to each other is because I'm saying to you that trust people, your team, and don't be arrogant, be humble. But also don't forget your convictions, why you started something, when to say no, when to cut people out, when to know who's leading in the wrong direction. If you fully trust everybody, you're going to mess up your business. If you're too arrogant, you're going to mess up your business. So if you run those two, you're going to do. So believe in what you're saying, because people are going to be haters. People are going to say your business sucks, your idea sucks. Why would you come up with something like this? So if you trust your convictions, that's the good thing for the SMMEs, then I think you're covered.
Tell me a bit about, somebody asked the question now. So tell me about South African brands that charge a premium but don't necessarily have the heritage. So I'm thinking here about, and I'm a fan of theirs, by the way, so this is not haterade. I'm a fan of theirs, and I know, because I bought their stuff. But I'm thinking about Maxhosa, right? So in our new hub, for instance, we as part of our design, we want to get in some of their rugs there, right? I've got a rug in my home that is a Maxhosa rug. So, but how in your mind, how did they manage to build their brand and charge a premium, but they didn't have the lineage or the heritage in the brand?
Because that's a great example. They piggybacked on a heritage. They are not. What is Maxhosa? What comes first in mind when you think Maxhosa? The Xhosa culture, right? And so what did Laduma do? He leveraged from the Xhosa culture. So he's not creating a random T-shirt. He's saying my manufacturing is in Eastern Cape. I pull from the Xhosa heritage. So I've got heritage. It costs more to manufacture my Xhosa shirts than it would if I made it in China.
Oh,
but if I made it in China, you get what I'm saying? If I made it in China, it doesn't have the heritage. So it won't have the heritage of if I import in bulk, it won't have the heritage of the manufacturing of the story. So it's about the story that you're selling, and that goes to point one, messaging. If your messaging makes sense, your pricing makes sense. Your price, it stops becoming price, it becomes value. So if your goal in life is always going from price to value, it's not how much you cost, but the value that I'll derive from the price.
100%.
And I don't know.
100%. That is powerful. I've never seen his brand like that. You just said something which made so much sense. That's why his brand is called Maxhosa, not Laduma. The brand is the heritage, and he's the curator of the heritage, and he brings the heritage through fabric into our lives rather than him being the brand.
100%. And it transcends.
I shouldn't swear, but that's brilliant. That is brilliant, right?
And it transcends, and that's why you can take this brand overseas and they relate to it, because it's not only the design, but more so than the design. It's everything about it. It's people's in touch with motherland Africa. It's Swiss Beast is able to wear something that transcends in that way. So it is like what you said. It's not him, but the brand that he represents. And that's why I said you can be two brands. You don't need to be the brand. So he does it well. I think he does it the best, actually.
I was about to say, I think he's got all of us looked at that. He's kicked that game properly.
Where's his store? Ask yourself, where's his store? Mall of Africa.
Yeah.
And what type of store, what type of mall is that? So the messaging transcends, continuous. It's not staggered. It's consistent. When you're consistent, okay, I'm a premium brand. I use premium material. I'm in a premium location. So you stop questioning the price and you understand the value of it. And
that's so powerful, man. That is so powerful. So you're saying to entrepreneurs, be consistent, right? Understand price versus value. Understand heritage, lineage, and how that feeds into your price and value. Think about your brand positioning and your brand messaging. But more importantly, if I've heard you say something which to me is really, really stuck, is this idea that you have to be able to say, don't be arrogant with your brand. Separate yourself from the brand and the brand from you so that it can stand alone and it can trade independent of who you are, right? Power, man.
Because that's how we create, especially even as Black people, that's how we create heritages. So that's the difference between wealth and rich. Rich is very temporary. It's a seasonal gain. You need to create brands because then when Vusi retires, his brand continues. We must stop getting to this point of dying with our brands. When I quit, it ends. The brand is gone. There's no one to take up the baton. So we need to get to a point where we continue this heritage and the lineage, and you can pass it on from generation to generation. So the longer term thinking of how we build our brands, and I know the current constructs of the country, but I think more brands need to take more companies and products and brands need to take more thinking into what type of message they want to take, construct in the beginning and continue it. And if it even costs money, guys, I think even if it costs money or 1,000 rand, but if you are willing to spend 1,000, think about how easily you're willing to spend over 1,000 rand on a sneaker or a t-shirt because it reflects yourself. But you don't want to spend over 1,000 rand on a logo because you don't see the value of the same thing. And that logo has a potential to bring more revenue and more business to your business. And that's where you need to start thinking as that this logo is like a sneaker to an outfit. It's like a heel to an outfit. It completes it. And without the proper investment in it, your brand will struggle. I don't think people don't realize how important a good brand image is. It's how people perceive you before they accept you. You know, it goes, and this could go, we've got so many discussions that we could have with even personal brand, where how you look, how you present yourself. Because people have this, what mistake we do as humans is that we have a certain set of principles for one thing and not the other. So we understand branding in a personal brand capacity. So when you say, see us going to an interview, you understand the importance of looking sharp in a nice suit, looking presentable, being clean shaven and all that. But then you forget when it comes to certain things like your brand, you buy a shabby, cheap bottle, or you buy you don't spend on a proper logo. Yeah. So that's the same relation. The same way your interviewer is looking at you is the same way your customer will be looking at you. You know?
Now I hear you, man. I think that's very powerful. So I've just started a process now. Remember the conversation you and I had a few months ago? So following this, we'll get on the phone just now because I need your help with some of the stuff I'm doing around our brand. So we've taken the 3 different parts of the businesses. We've split them up for our venture fund. We've created a My Growth Fund Venture Partners. For our accelerator and the stuff we do with accelerators and incubators, we've created a My Growth Fund Accelerate. And then for the stuff we're doing with our hubs, we've created a nonprofit organization. So I remember the first conversation you and I had, because when you came to my office, we were chatting about this. And I was like, look, the biggest problem I have is I've got the vision in my mind about where I want to go. And I see the full ecosystem. And then I drew the line for you and I showed you the line about how we think about the game. And I was like, but my biggest problem is I don't know which story to tell first and where to go. And, you know, and the inconsistencies around. In fact, just this morning, true story, I was shouting at my social media team because they were saying they don't have content for My Growth Fund. And I was like, what are you talking about? You don't have content for My Growth Fund. They're like, well, it's not, you know, it's lockdown, we can't have content. I was like, guys, wait a minute. Think about this logically. The tagline for My Growth Fund is we exist for the entrepreneur. So I said, let's talk about this. What is the entrepreneur going through right now? He's going through anxiety, he's going through pain, he's going through worry, he's not sleeping at night, he's got bills. Many entrepreneurs will tell you the biggest thing entrepreneurs right now are worried about is Friday, because Friday is payroll. And a lot of them have had a month where they haven't earned any money and payroll's due. Next week, Friday, they have to pay rental, they've got to pay VAT, they've got to pay PAYE and UYF, they've got to pay all their loans and all of that stuff, right? So I said, if we put ourselves in the mind of the entrepreneur, these are the big questions he's asking themselves. How can you say we don't have content? Surely we can get people on the line who can be advising entrepreneurs right now about the what to do, and we become the platform that those people are connecting with these entrepreneurs on. What's difficult about this, right? But I think it is, to your point, it's about how we think about the work we do, the reason we exist, and how it's manifested, and then how your people actualize it and activate it every single day.
Mm. Definitely, I think it is. It's also, you must understand that the brand is also like with what your team is going through. The brand is a real life experience of your customers, and that's why it goes back to understanding your customers. So you'll always have content if you understand your customers, your suppliers, and your value chain. So if you don't have a story to tell, your customer has a story to tell. If you don't have a story to tell, your supplier has a story to tell. So you can go to any one of your incubatees and say, look, what's your story? How are you handling coronavirus? How are you handling sales or job losses or
That's
opportunities?
literally what I was saying to the team today. I was like, we've got 50. This is my Alexa. My Alexa, check it out.
Network. You can find setup instructions in the help section of your Alexa app.
I haven't connected my Alexa app, but so I was saying to my team today, I was like, guys, let's think about this for a minute. Many people don't know this, but my growth fund is going on close on a decade old. We're now 8 years old, right? Said to them, we have created in the period through the companies that we've invested in, we've created over 6,000 jobs. In the companies that we've incubated, we've created over 1,000 jobs. We calculated the other day, over 150 million rand worth of economic value. This is off the back of us investing our own funds, and to date we've invested over 40 million rand of our own money. So I was like, are you trying to tell me that of all these businesses that we've worked with and all these people that jobs we've created, you can't go to them and just get a story and put the story out there? So there's people watching this now who didn't even know this. People watching this who are like, so what does my growth fund do? They didn't even know the stuff that I'm telling you, right? So I think for me, anyway, that's one of the things I've taken at this lockdown. It's just been to sit back and think about where are we? What are we saying? How do we communicate it to people? How do we make sure? See, I'm telling you now, the hardest thing to do, there's 3 things in my mind that are the hardest thing to do. The first is consistency, particularly consistency around messaging and consistency around brand and protecting brand. You know, because for a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll tell you, it's not easy, it's not hard to find a designer all of a sudden changing the font on a poster. You're going, wait a minute. Why are you changing the font? I gave you the CI. We use this font. Don't change the font, right? So there's a lot to do with protecting the value of your brand and how the value of the brand is manifested, right? And then I think the second thing that a lot of entrepreneurs battle with, once you have, you know, sort of like, this is what we stand for, is then going, so who do we talk to? Because we still think, and that's why I love the point you made earlier, that you can get somebody who has 3 million followers and come to Vusi, who has now 280,000 followers on Twitter, on Instagram. And Vusi will do more for you than the person with 3 million followers because of who follows Vusi, right? And then you can go to Sia, who's got 10,000 followers, and Sia does more for you than Vusi because of who follows Sia. So for the first time, I think we're getting into that space when you're talking branding and you don't just want to throw numbers at it, but to your point, you want to throw data, analytics, you want to throw insights. You want to understand who are the people behind this person and will they buy the stuff that I'm selling? You know, I always say to people, there's a reason why everybody wants a Lamborghini, but Lamborghini doesn't run TV ads. Because Lamborghini buyers aren't watching TV for ads. You know, it's just, I've never met a Lamborghini buyer who was like, yeah, I saw an ad about this thing and I wanted to buy it. That's not the way, you know, you made a beautiful example. Oh, man. Now you got me thinking. You made a beautiful example when you came to see me the other day and you were talking about Ferrari. And I was like, what? Because then you started talking about the red of Ferrari and how obsessive Ferrari is about that red. And I have one. I'd never thought about that. I'd never thought to go, wait a minute. Honali red and then Honali Ferrari red. Like, do you know what I mean? In my mind, it had never jumped out.
And because it's important for such brands because it displays, they know why, they know the consistent, and I think there's always subtle undertones. The reason a Ferrari is red as well is because red is a great signifier of danger, of fast pace, of it's an energizing color. So color is very, very important when it comes, and it's also flashy. That's why people, if you notice, sports cars are always flashy. And in terms of what you're saying with Lamborghini, you do get to a point where that's where the value of branding and marketing is that if you advertise well enough from the beginning, you get to a point where you don't advertise, and goes back to your idea, your example that you had in your earlier live where you're speaking about BMW during apartheid. That if you advertise and position, not even advertise, if you position your brand well enough, culture takes over, and when culture takes over, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So BMW wasn't being sold because they had great TV ad campaigns. It's because of the culture, the spinning of the car, the type of people who were driving the car. So the culture carries on the message for you. Ferrari, culture sells Ferrari. The idea of is the epitome of success. BMW in South Africa, culture sells BMW, Audis, and Mercedes because it is the epitome of success. Doesn't matter what advert. If you ask a BMW driver, tell me about this BMW advert. What is the BMW advert that made you purchase it? But what was the guy that you saw driving it growing up that made you say, when I'm successful one day, I will buy this car? So they allow you. That's why and this goes back to the whole messaging thing. That's why they always allow you they take every customer into the dealership because you could be a potential one day because
that's a fact.
They must make sure that they treat, whether it's Sia who doesn't have a job. I looked at a BMW way before I even would be able to purchase it. Things like that is that you buy into, you continue selling something and then you make it a cultural phenomenon. When something's a cultural phenomenon, it becomes inherent. It's inherent in the DNA of what we live in. So you start being able to not do anything. You can sit back as a brand and say, I don't need to really, I'm just marketing to reinforce. I don't really need to tell Vusi about the fact that there's a Woolworths store. It's positioned itself so well that it will always be there. You know what to expect of it. There's no new ad or campaign that will push you none the wiser. The brand heritage is much stronger than any current perception that you can have. So that's why if you reinvest in your messaging, if you reinstill the type of constant messaging that you have, and if you look at the examples that you gave, your Ferraris, your Lamborghinis, they've had a constant message for hundreds of years. They've always had strive for the same thing. They always made sure that they present the same value. So there's no confusion in the sense of the customer base. And that's why it's very important for you guys to know as a brand is that what is my message and how do I stick to it? And how do I show longevity in that? For example, let's give a simple example in our work. We'll dumb it down and make it simple. Imagine you're trying to hire a person, and then you've got Siyabonga and Thabo. Siyabonga has worked in marketing, then he worked in call center, then he worked in retail, then he worked in all these different industries. And then you've got Thabo, who's worked as a junior he's worked as a coordinator, a sales assistant. He's worked as a marketing coordinator, then he worked as an events coordinator, then he worked as a brand manager and as a marketing manager. Consistency will make you inclined when you're looking for someone in marketing.
100%.
Because he's consistent, he's grown, he might not be as experienced, he might not have the 10 years experience that Sia might have, but his consistency makes him easy to buy into because he has stuck to a message. He's stuck to the craft and he's pushed that craft to where he is currently. Whereas Jumping Jack Sia here has done everything. So he knows a little bit of everything, but a whole lot of nothing. And that becomes a problem. So as a brand, understand that you can't be everywhere. You can't jump from one to the other, then come back. That confuses your customers. And you must understand the reason that we have, here's another takeout. The reason we have brands is to reduce anxiety.
What?
Does that make sense?
Makes no sense.
When you have
Makes no sense. Say that again.
The reason you have a brand is to reduce anxiety.
Right.
When you're purchasing something, what happens is that it could be whether it's milk, a t-shirt, whatever. Once you know the quality of a brand, what happens to you as a buyer? Okay, there's a thing called buyer dissonance, which is the feeling. Have you ever purchased something and felt like, shove it, I shouldn't have purchased that thing? Not buyer dissonance. So that just happens as psychologically as your brain post-purchasing something, you start doubting your purchase because it's a psychological thing. You know, I remember we spoke about how I told you that a mall is psychological and it's a science space. Like when you go into a mall, trust me, everything is science. So how brands reduces anxiety is this. When you purchase something that you know the value of, it's not about price. Remember I said it's about value. So now I know that if I buy Omo, and I use Omo, I know what quality I'm going to get. I know what consistency I'm going to get. I know how to use that product. But if I try something new, then I'm not sure what I'm getting. It could be great. It could suck. And the easiest way to give this example is that people who are not new to restaurants, and this is me personally, the reason I always buy steak is that when I'm at a fancy restaurant and I'm spending 200 Rand, I'd rather buy something that I'm sure I kind of know how it's going to taste like. If I risk and purchase something that I don't know, like I try beef carpaccio and I get a mess, I've just wasted 200 Rand. It's Russian roulette. I've gambled my money. So brands reduce anxiety in the sense that they take away the gamble of what you purchase. So that's the main reason that we have
that is
different
phenomenal.
brands.
I've never thought of that. I'd never ever thought of that. I'd never thought about, because that's like the psychological effect of branding, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's phenomenal. So I'll tell you an interesting story.
Even goes,
Yeah.
It even goes to the whole idea of pricing. We've always had this debate that people go, okay, in the lower LSM, the big issue is price. But funny enough, the big brands are always selling very well. Your Nestlés, your Unilevers are selling very well in the rural areas and the townships and all that. The reason they sell well is because they reduce anxiety. Think about this. I am a low-income earner. I've got 20 Rand to purchase washing powder. If I take my 20 Rand and there's brand A is 16 Rand. It's new to the country. I don't know anything. Brand B is 19 Rand 90, but I've grown up with that brand and it's always consistent. I know what to purchase. As much as brand A is cheaper, the purchase of brand B is more important because to the consumer, because the idea to him is I'm not risking losing 16 Rand.
100%.
So think about it between 16 Rand versus 3 Rand. So my 3 Rand cost input to purchase the brand B is saving me 16 Rand risk. So as a consumer, as much price is important, risk is also as important. I don't have another 20. Vusi can try brand B because Vusi might have another 20 Rand. You can waste 20 Rand and go, I lost out on that. That is terrible. Let me throw it away. If I don't have that risk, I don't have the money to take that risk, I won't risk. That's the thing.
I got you. I was going to say to you just quickly in closing. So, everybody knows I'm into cars, but so I'll tell you guys a story. So I'd always wanted a Ferrari. Always wanted a Ferrari, right? So the day comes, I'm finally getting one. Man, you will not believe the shit they charge you for. The badge on the side of the car is an extra. You pay extra for the badge. You don't just get the badge. And I thought about, what does the badge of a Ferrari say that the badge of a BMW doesn't say? When they billed me extra for the badge, my brain couldn't connect with it because I love nice things, but I'm also a bit of a Jew. So like, if I don't have to spend money, I'm a proper miser. If I don't have to spend money, I won't. It's like, you're charging me for the badge, and so I said to the guy, I was like, so okay, I'll take it without the badge. He says, no, you're not allowed. So I said, wait a minute. You're selling me the car, which is already selling at 200-300% of any other supercar in the market I could buy. And on top of that, you're charging me for the badge, and you won't let me take the car without the badge. He says, yep, what that badge meant. See, let me tell you. When he explained the colors, when he explained the background, when he explained the prancing horse, I was like, once again, it's fine. Here's your money. Take it. I want the badges. You start even taking the optional badges. We're like, put a badge there, put a badge there, put a badge on the seat, put a badge in the back, because he had a great way of helping me understand the value versus the price of the thing. Man, I didn't expect that this conversation would blow up like this, but people have loved this conversation. And a lot of people are now asking a couple of other questions. So maybe what we do, let's you and I take this conversation offline, and then we can think about how we can expand on this conversation for the people on IG going forward, yeah?
100%.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.